Renfield is a film that basically sold itself to me, and I assume the rest of the world, by casting Nicholas Cage as Dracula, which was just a stroke of genius. Nicholas Hoult plays Renfield in a modern-day Dracula story where Renfield is essentially wanting to get out of this relationship with Dracula because obviously he's just the servant. That's why you see the toxic relationship line in all of the marketing.
Need to get out of a toxic relationship.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Which honestly just annoyed me, which is why, despite a lot of it looking to be a real fun time, I just got a weird feeling from the marketing and never got round to it, but thankfully I was proven wrong, and it was a really, really fun movie. Overall, I'd say it is a mixed bag. Like, it's not great, but it's not bad by any means. But a massive issue I have with it is we don't really spend much time with Dracula and Renfield together. We do briefly. I would have just liked to see more of their dynamic before kind of Renfield decides to leave and starts taking out bad guys and shit. Because it has a lot of potential to be really funny. We get a montage that's really cool, seeing Nicholas Cage as the original Dracula, and it's a lot of fun, and I know this film is just trying to have a fun time with its concept and everything, and it mostly does that, but I just think their dynamic was lacking ever so slightly, and I think it would have made the film more interesting and even funnier, because the scenes they do have together are great, but instead it feels like the film is forcing itself to chug through everything that we need to know early on. My other big issue is that it seems to trade that time to include a mob and like corrupt cop plot, and we get a lot of that, and it was just a weird place to put the focus on. I feel like we spent a little bit too much time with it. It starts off fine with being the reason Renfield realises he'd rather help people as opposed to getting people killed for Dracula. Some of the editing in the sequence isn't great, but it's still a really fun time. But after that, we spend a lot of time with the mob, and they're so clearly there to be killed, but just about they don't overstay their welcome too badly, so it doesn't totally ruin it for me. Speaking of the kills though, despite some editing that does make grasping the location kind of weird and a bit too choppy, it's still really, really fun. It's very over the top, very much like Angel in a way, which I love. In particular, that final fight with Renfield and the lead mob guy, I've forgotten his name. It reminded me of that final fight scene in Angel. They're just flipping so much, and it's intentionally like pretty goofy and really fun. The CGI isn't particularly great throughout the film, but we've got people like doing flips and ripping off limbs and using limbs to fight off other characters, and it's so overly gory that is just a really fun time. It's a simple film that doesn't have loads to it necessarily. It does have a bit of commentary on like toxic relationships and stuff, and being dependent on others, and obviously it executes that in quite a comedic way. Even though it does it in a comedic way, it's still an effective way to get me invested in Renfield and this world and these characters, and understand their motivations and care about the events that are going on, just enough. I'm not like massively invested, but, and obviously in particular the case of Renfield, where he is really finding himself, and through this group that he's talking to, and through Awkwafina's character as well, and just learning that his life revolves around someone else. And like I say, it is obviously very much a comedy, but I still really liked what they did there, and I think a lot of it was genuinely funny. All the performances are really good. Obviously Cage chews every scene up. He kind of carries the movie. Nicholas Hoult is great though, and Awkwafina has some really great moments as well. I thought it was shot very well, and overall had a very memorable look with some really great lighting and great set design, even though a lot of the film is kind of stupid, to be honest. Like characters having plot armor and just quite a lot of stupid plot conveniences, and character decisions with seemingly no thought behind them. It kind of helps that this film knows what it is. Like, it's asking you to not take it too seriously, and if you do, you're gonna have a less fun time with it. And I don't want to say turn your brain off, because I don't really like that argument for movies, that it's just a turn your brain off film. But it is just one of those films that knows what it is, and it's just having a fun time with itself. When you have Nic Cage as Dracula, you need to embrace that and that kind of vibe as much as you can. And it does that. And I think that is ultimately what makes this one work. It's so much fun. Unfortunately, I do think if Nic Cage wasn't in it, it probably would have sucked. But it is a really fun time, and I would recommend it.